following program on Ada Derana 24 is classified for general audience. It is intended for all ages. It contains little or no violence, no strong language, and little or no sexual dialogue or situations. The following program contains opinions of the participants and does not reflect the views and beliefs of the Derana Media Network. The network believes in a safe space for all ideas to be expressed and on its duty to create such a platform for free speech. Viewer discretion is strictly advised. For a real view, real opinion, and for an honest conversation, it's time to Get Real with Mahieash Johnney. Tonight, coming to you from Studio 24 in Colombo.
A very good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Get Real, where we talk to notable newsmakers here at home and also from all over the world. Last week we had a conversation about our digital economy. One of the entrepreneurs in that space was here, Bhanuka Harishchandra. So it makes sense for us to actually talk to the government side of things. We spoke to the private sector with regard to what they hope to do in terms of digital infrastructure, digital economy, and how to proceed beyond that. And I think it's vital that we get the government's point of view on this as well. And joining me for that conversation is none other than the Deputy Minister of Digital Economy, Eranga Weeraratne. Welcome to the program. Good to see you. Thank you for being here, Minister.
Thank you for inviting me for the...
Minister, so let's start with this particular beast called, digitization process itself. It is something of a buzzword that we've been hearing in Sri Lanka since I think in 2015 onwards. You're talking about digitization, and we have these little things coming from the government side, but not exactly to the point where we can really harness the benefits of those kinds of tools. If you look at countries like South Korea, if you look at countries like Japan, China, all these, even Singapore, these countries have industrialized themselves to a really high end through the utilization of digitization. So we are trying to get there, and even India is the same. So what exactly is this government's plan of getting us there? Because many successive governments have done this, and still here we are at the place where we are. So where is this government trying to take us to?
Right. So digitalization is nothing new. It's been done since early 1990s. Early it was called IT, information technology, but now digital economy. Now, when you say digital economy, it's not just IT. It involves various other areas as well, like digital economy to build the cashless and digital payments-based services, and the government digitalization, the private sector, the digital industry, and also the workforce and so on. So, the Sri Lankan previous governments, it's not that they haven't spent on digitalization. They have spent a huge sum of monies. However, the issue is those digitalization activities hasn't actually given the right benefits to the country. Maybe due to various reasons from the leadership issues, the implementation related issues, and also many things were done in sort of in isolation, based on silo-based implementations, where the continuous improvements hasn't been done to those systems, and therefore now there are so much baggage existing in the government institutions in digitalization that are not actually giving any productive output to the institution as well as to the public. Therefore, what we are trying to envisage in building this digital economy is to look at all these existing platforms and then see what can be used, and also bringing up the required digital infrastructure so that the foundational frameworks will be rightly in place, so that we can integrate these isolated platforms and create a cohesive system to the government.
Are you going to start from zero, or are you going to build on the things that has already been established?
It will be built on top of the existing systems. It's not from zero, because we can't just throw away what are there outside. There are certain things we'll need to do, certain improvements to integrate with the rest of the systems in the other governmental departments, as well as we'll have to do certain cleanup of the platforms and the databases to have certain master databases and the integrations, so that there won't be copies of various different databases in various departments. Those are not in sync, not having a kind of proper authenticity of the data. And also there's no central kind of authentication of a person's kind of very basic things that's not been done properly. Therefore, we'll bring in the required digital public infrastructure, that is the building blocks, and then build on
that is for the government sector.
Yes.
So, I mean, we saw in many instances where the government is trying to bring these kinds of systems into place, and then they go and dump a system, let's say, to a particular ministry. And the utilization of that particular system from the existing employees of that particular ministry is really low. Because one, they don't understand the system, two, it is very complicated to them, three, the computer literacy is really low in instances like that. Now, these are challenges that existed for many times during this implementation. I'm sure it's going to come in the next few years as well, whenever you are going to take over and try to implement. So how are you going to address that? Because those people have not changed. They continue to remain in the system, but the utilization, let's say you're coming up with a new software to be implemented throughout all government institutions. Implementation plus the adoption of that into that system, how is that particular challenge being addressed? I mean, is the government now trying on giving trainings, understanding, the complications, or are we just going to do away with the current workforce and bring in new? What exactly is the plan there?
Yeah. So when we see the failures in the past implementation, what we see is in two prompts. One is about the infrastructure. Now we have the Lanka government cloud, Lanka government network, and so on. However, most of the things are outdated, and therefore various complaints are coming. Either the systems are not working, maybe the accessibility is not there, and so many issues. So first thing, we'll have to fix those things, so that when we relaunch or get these systems activated in the real usage, then the first impression and also the experience to the users as well as the public will be much better than how it was in the past. Then the other fact is about the change management. Now, what we see is there are a lot of systems that's been developed, but once they go to the actual usage, the users identify a lot of inconsistencies of those systems to the actual that is working culture or the working model process with those institutions. So what has happened in past is somebody else is developing the solutions and the users are totally different. And the users are also rejecting the solution because they are saying this is some other person's system and it's not working. So there's no ownership. For example, ICTA, the previous entity who was driving the government digitalization. Now, a lot of institutions say this is ICT system. It's not their system. So therefore, there are various 1001 excuses or the issues that they are raising why it cannot be used. If it was their own system, then people will say, okay, there are certain issues that we have to fix them in, but at the end, the system must be used and the KPIs must be set to all those departments so that the effectiveness of the systems will happen and it will ultimately like improve the processes and the services in all these departments.
So what you're saying is, last time when they were doing it, they centralized this particular process, which is ICTA, and that particular institution went into all these government institutions and tried to implement their systems. And then when there is a problem, for a simple example, if we take the Department of Motor Traffic, if they have an issue with their systems, let's say it's not functioning, or whatever the input they're putting it is not coming out properly. So at that moment, the officials of the motor traffic department does not take the ownership, and then they pass it on to ICTA saying, well, you have to come. Right now what you're suggesting is, no, that's not going to happen. Now we are going to implement from within the Department of Motor Traffic, and to make sure that they will take control of their own system. Doesn't that mean that we are going to have like various systems coming into play, or how is that going to be cohesive all throughout?
What you propose secondly is what we are going to do. So the owners will always will be that particular institution who's wanting that particular digital system. However, this government is setting up this digital economic ministry because we believe that the digitalization must be governed by a central body.
Yeah.
And we are giving high priority that it must be drive that is like cohesive, and all the different implementation must adhere to a national framework.
Yeah, exactly.
And implementation. So therefore, my ministry will be working with those line ministries to ensure the system is adhering to the national plan, is adhering to the national digital framework, and whatever that is implemented is ready to integrate with the rest of the other systems, and there won't be any duplication of functions, and it will be at the end effectively be used. And so the governance, monitoring and evaluation will be done by the Ministry of Digital Economy, and that ministry will work with the respective line ministries and the departments to get the system implemented. So the ownership will always lie with the respective institution, and they will be the ultimate party who's responsible to get it used and the KPIs met.
This particular proposal of bringing all these institutions into a digitized framework is going to cost a lot, because server space, then designing the system, the computer infrastructure, the literal infrastructure, the utilization of instruments, all this is going to cost. So the budget is the final say in that. So what exactly is the government's in 2025 budget? We saw that there is a considerable allocation, but then again there was also allocation for overheads to be increased as well. So how does that work? Because if digitalization is happening in a really positive rate, then the utilization of overheads needs to slowly come down, because you don't need to 150 people to manage 150 areas of the system. The whole idea of the digitalization is to make sure that that heavy workload will be taken on by these systems. So what is the thinking there?
Right. So the recent budget that is now currently in debate and going to get passed in 21st of March, the government allocated a substantial budget for digitalization. So for my ministry itself, there's 16.6 billion rupees allocation.
Yeah.
And the rest of the government departments for digitalization and those initiatives, 21 billion kind of allocation is there. So there's a substantial allocation that the government is doing for digitalization. And what's more important is what we are going to do with all those money. So we are going to implement this digital public infrastructure, DPI platforms, such as the digital ID, the national data exchange, then the cloud revamp and so on, so that all these platforms will be quite efficiently be working. And we are also not believing that the digitalization should be done 100% by the government also. We want to get private sector involved, so we are pretty much in favor of going for PPP kind of public-private partnership kind of models for digitalization. For example, we are talking to various private companies who are having the data center operations in Sri Lanka to see whether the government can actually lend the data center space from those existing data centers without us government putting 100% capex on implementing these platforms, because that is to address two things. One is about the cost. So government, if we are going to do a data center implementation, then we'll have to buy all the hardware. We have to have all the professionals to man the system and so on. That's a huge cost. The other one is we want to support the economy, so the private sector, because what we believe is the private sector is the driving force of the economy. We are talking about the production, the economy. So for that, private sector has to play a key role. And these existing data centers, if you can utilize, then we will support the economy rolling, as well as it will ease the burden on the government for digitalization.
Minister, you brought up the national ID. When are we going to see that actually, when can the first person can hold it physically in their hand, and what exactly would be the benefit of getting a digital ID versus whatever that we have already? What's the whole thinking on that? Because if you are taking digital ID, then it should be also must substitute at least your licenses, a vehicle license or something of that. It is not just one ID card for national identification, but it should also substitute as other, so that we don't need 5 or 6 entities to be with you with one particular card. You should be able to do many things. So what exactly is the time frame for that, plus what is the government's thinking on giving a digital ID to the users? Is it just a fashionable thing, or what's the process here?
Right. So the digital ID means having the same biodata as what is there today, plus the biometrics data. So biometrics is needed for the 100% correct identification of the person. So there are 3 ways of identifying a person. One is with what you know, like a password kind of thing, what you have, like a digital ID, the physical card, and what you are, like fingerprints and face recognition and so on. So that third one is the most accurate way of identification. Today, when you go to some institution, for example, let's say to the bank, you produce some documents like maybe the identity card and maybe the residential certification of the residence and so on. And based on that, only that the service is provided for you. But there are so many issues in current context where certain IDs are either duplicated, or some people are using somebody else's identity to get certain services done. So many corruptions are happening because the ID as a physical card is not providing the 100% accurate authenticity of the person. And the other issue is there are so many duplications are also happening because these things are not centrally controlled. For example, if you go to get a birth certificate, you have to get a birth certificate, then go to get a ID, you have to take the birth certificate there, then when you are going to get a passport, you have to take both certified and again go and produce them, and those data are duplicated in Neuria. So we have to eradicate that. We have to get certain order into what data resides where and what sort of authentication mechanisms are being implemented. So this digital ID, because it contains biometrics data, in future any activity can be made much faster, more simpler, as well as more accurate.
Will the digital ID replace your license, your passport, and maybe whatever the identification that is being provided to you. Let's say now if we come into this organization, I need to have an ID of this organization. So would these particular areas of element, like by getting a national ID, you're already having the ability to apply, let's say for a passport, it may be one tick, okay, this is also passport activated, or motor license activated. So you just have one card, and you just, wherever you go, you can actually, it could be a physical card or a digital card, or doesn't matter what's the form. But instead of having like a separate motor license digital ID, separate passport digital ID, and then a national ID also, which is digital. So where are we heading on that?
Digital ID won't replace everything, like e-passport or e-driving license, e-motor registration.
Why not, Minister?
The thing is, now we are talking about various applications in working in tandem. So digital ID is to authenticate who you are, but it doesn't really have to have all the details about you in a single place. That's one of the concerns that many have raised as well. And also we also believe that systems must work in different distributed fashion and exchange data, but not that everything reside in a single platform, in a single location. So for example, digital passport, let's say e-passport, it has various other biometrics, and the personal related details, like the application, the variety of passports, then the countries that is applicable, and so many other information related to the passport. So those details which are not necessary for the digital ID, you don't have to bring it to the digital ID platform. Similarly for e-driving license. Now it can be digital, but it contains the point scheme for fine point scheme and so on.
But what I'm trying to ask is, if everything is being utilized by a phone these days and you are basically running businesses, I've seen CEOs seated in front of me right now and doing their businesses during the break on the phone. If that's where the world is right now, what is the point of having 3 separate cards or identification processes instead of utilizing it into one? You said, yes, the passport data is not relevant for the biometric, but it is, because if by any chance, if you want to go, let's say to UK or Australia, now they say you need the biometrics. So it is a must. So you have a passport, you go and produce your passport, and then they ask you to come and sit and get your biometrics done, and then you have, whenever you land in that particular country, they recheck your biometrics. So if it is already been done at one particular go, can't we already skip all these that is where the world is anyway heading. So why can't we get to that particular point rather than going through this again, the same model of thinking?
Right. So we have to understand how these systems work also. For example, let's say take passport as the example. Now here, when somebody is applying for the passport, currently you take your ID and you give the biometrics at the passport premises.
Yeah.
But once the digital ID comes, where the biometrics is there, you don't have to provide that biometrics data again going to the passport office. So it will do the real-time validation against the digital ID platform when you put your thumbprint, and the biometrics will always reside in the DRP, that digital ID platform, and passport details will reside in the immigration office, whatever the platform that is there. Now, e-passport works when you go to some other country. When you scan the passport, it validates the authenticity of the passport through a central system residing here called PKI system.
Yeah.
Through that.
That is currently happening also.
It's not currently happening.
E-passports,
which is going to come.
Yeah, not for Sri Lanka, but in other countries.
In other countries, other countries are.
Yeah.
But Sri Lanka also now we are going for e-passport, even though so the PKI implementation will happen, and like March next year, the system will come with the e-passport facility. So that passport authentication will happen real time. Whenever you go and swipe the passport, that real-time authentication will happen. The fingerprint authentication will happen not against the fingerprint that is there given to the passport. What happens is when you go to take visa, at that place, that particular country's system will take your fingerprint. And that fingerprint matching will happen against that fingerprint that you are giving to that particular embassy. So it's not coming to the central system. So therefore, like you don't have to integrate these two systems, and the passport related system will need to have these PKI based platforms and so on for that real time iCargo based authentication there. Now similar to driving license. So driving license also pointable if you are when you are implementing it. That deduction of points will happen there. However, we have to control the, let's say somebody has, let's say court has imposed certain restrictions on a person on maybe foreign travel or maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
So those flags will be there in the digital ID platform. So whenever that person goes to the passport, that those flags will be visible to all the systems, so that they are warned on whatever the status that person is in.
All right, we've been discussing a lot about what the government is hoping to do with regard to digital infrastructure here in Sri Lanka and also the implementation of it. And I'm picking the brain of the Deputy Minister in order to understand where the government's thinking is in this particular field. Let's take a short commercial break. I'm in conversation with Deputy Minister of Digital Economy, Eranga Weeraratne. You're watching Get Real. We'll be right back. Everyone to Get Real. I'm in conversation with the Deputy Minister of Digital Economy, Eranga Weeraratne, with regard to what the government is hoping to do with the digital infrastructure implementation process, which is currently in the pipeline by this current NPP government, and they are proceeding ahead. The President has made it very clear in many statements he have made that digital infrastructure is something that he is very keen in making sure that Sri Lanka would harness the benefit of it, and hopefully he has actually put the money where his mouth is. There's a lot of money that has been given by the 2025 budget, which even was explained by the Deputy Minister. Minister, now the biggest issue, and it is not an issue just for Sri Lanka, it is an issue all around the world. One of the things, basically the users are going to be Sri Lankans. So if Sri Lankans are the users, for them the biggest concern is security. Is my data protected? Yes, I can give the biometrics and I can give all these kinds of things to the government. It is very easy for me to do all these kinds of services. But then again, by a flip of a switch, can the government take control of my entire life? You understand there's a conversation that is happening, especially when you're not familiar with the system, which is like majority of Sri Lanka. Despite the fact that there is a lot of mobile penetration in this country, information technology, IT based knowledge or IT literacy is not that at a high end. It is coming up with the younger generations, but then again we are talking about 22 million people here. So in a situation like security wise, what are the steps the government is very promptly taking on to make sure that the data is secured? That is number one. Second is that we have the ownership. That means the Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka, whatever the government that is in power, has the ownership of this data of its citizens, or are we giving it to some other country to take care of us on behalf of us?
Yeah, so our government, we are pretty much giving high priority for this data protection related activities, and therefore we will never host these sensitive critical data outside Sri Lanka. All this data will reside physically within Sri Lanka, and those are in the secure data centers as well. So security will be paramount, and also all the institutions that is responsible for the security of digital assets will continuously monitor the security, the vulnerabilities and everything of these digital platforms. So to ensure that there's no data leakage or there's no cyber threat or anything to those data. Then the other thing is, now collection of these data will always be done by the entities within the country. Like it could be government department, or it could be working with the private sectors. I don't know the model, but it will be 100% by local entities. So there are certain systems that we are getting implemented with the assistance of foreign entities. But those systems will ensure that the work that the foreign entities done is only for the software customization and providing us the technical know-how and giving those systems. But before going live and collecting the live data, we'll ensure that those entities will not have any access to those platforms, as well as the management of those platforms will be again will be done by the government entity like ICT or coming in future GovTech kind of entities only. Then about the data protection. Now when we are going for digitalization, protection of data is also paramount. So there, when we are exchanging data, we will ensure that the
exchanging data with outside.
Other departments. So let's say the passport office is exchanging certain information with some other institution within the government or the private sector. So there, the exchange of data will happen only based on the minimal need to know basis, what is minimal for that particular activity. For example, let's say somebody going and opening a bank account. So if the digital ID has to do certain authentication and say this is the person, it will only limit the access to the authentication purpose only. It will not reveal any other data about the person. So data sharing will be on minimalized basis. So to protect that, the Data Protection Act is going to get enforced within 6 months' time, and also we'll implement set up the digital data protection authority to enforce this data protection related activities within all the government and private sector institutions. Then the other thing, now the data privacy also matters.
Yeah.
For example, without my consent, I shouldn't be, the system shouldn't
access my data
and transfer data to some other department. So for example, let's say I'm going to some university and wanting to register for my some course, and that's university wants to access my, let's say, O-level, A-level certificates through the system, not based on the certificates that I go and produce. So at that point, the system will send me a trigger saying that this university is wanting to access these certificates. Are you willing to provide? So that if I consent only, that those documents will be shared with the respective. So for that, we are going to bring in a digital platform called DigiLocker. That you can save all your cards like digital ID, passport, driving license, maybe health card, and so many other cards, as well as your certificates like education certificates or whatever the other certifications, and various other documents that may come in the future. So that through that platform, through that application, you can authorize and give your consent based on some other requests coming from other departments.
Let's take a practical issue here, Minister. Now, let's take the passport issue. Now, you very well know there is a huge queue in all the passport offices all around the country, and people want to get passports. And we are going through this entire big issue where sometimes we are told that passports are not adequate enough in order to physically print. So, if you look at like many years, this actually came from iPhone. They actually invented your boarding pass, which can come to your, the phone that you carry, and basically you can produce that at the gate, and that basically substitute a physical printed boarding pass to a digital boarding pass, where they scan your data from your phone, and then it's done. QR codes are a big utilization in the modern world these days. Now, in a situation like that, are we looking at, like when I try to understand, are we looking at getting rid of these physical cards that we hold in our hand and put it into a digital, because you just said about DigiLocker, where you can put all your data into that, so you can have like 50 cards or 100 cards or whatever the number of cards you can, but in a digital format. So right now, even you have digital cards that is being provided. For simple example, certain banks provide web cards. So you can, it is not physical, but it is there like a digital card when you access your this thing. So are we getting to that type of a system, or are we still going to have these physical, handheld, passports, licenses, ID cards? No.
Yeah,
because cost is going to be.
Our ultimate goal is to get there, to have 100% total digital platforms, and all the various service providers accept those digital IDs and that cards which is in the DigiLocker. However, we have to go through a right change management process, because we can't overnight change the system.
Yeah.
So there'll be a certain change management period where we'll have to take both systems forward, and maybe it could be 5 years or 3 years or whatever the duration that's necessary for that activity. Because when you issue a digital ID, now one thing is everybody needs to have a certain digital device for them to show the ID to the wherever that is necessary to show. But there are certain people who are still using maybe the key based phones and all phones. So they won't be able to provide that facility. And there are certain other governmental institutions also, and the private sector institutions as well, still rely on the physical card, and they may not be still overnight trust the digital. So we have to go to that transition mode period. Therefore, we will issue the digital ID as a physical format also until such period, and also for the newcomers, new ID issuance, we'll give the new digital ID. But for the existing IDs, we'll make it optional. Like if you already have a physical ID in the old format or the current format, you're not necessary to change that to a digital ID coming, because that is sufficient for anybody to authenticate, which the standard plastic card authentication is sufficient. But anybody to get a more advanced authentication through digital ID, they can always get it done through the electronic mode, not rely on the physical card.
So what you're saying is, I'm a person who doesn't use cash. Like there's 0 rupees in my purse right now, because for me it's all this. So if by any chance, because it's easy to access whenever you go all around the world, it's very easy to utilize your digital data, and plus it is accepted all around the world. So in a situation like that, would there be an option for people who wants to go on that path, because they really don't, like, I don't want to carry my ID card, my driving license, my e-passport, my all these 5, 6, 7 cards, and then my bank card and all these kinds of cards, and then keep it somewhere, and then I lose it, then replacing them is a cumbersome process. But is there a process where you can ask for, even right now, saying, okay, can I have it in a web format or a digital format rather than a physical card?
Yes, that's the plan. So once we introduce DigiLocker.
What exactly? I mean, like, is it during this 5-year period that you all are in power, or is this a way beyond?
No, it is within the 5 years. So this implementation of this digital infrastructure won't take that long. Like, we are hoping to complete this implementation of DigiLocker, the NDX, the National Data Exchange, Digital ID, everything within like 2 years kind of time frame. But for the adaptation and for the change, it will take some time. But that implementation and getting the service being used will be coming well within 5 years' time. And also, we'll bring in all the changes to the legislations for these things to be accepted. Than rely on the plastic cards or something like that. And for the digital payments, what you said is something that we have on the very high agenda, because what we believe is digital payments will be the other main pillar that will change the way how the society is.
It has already changed to a certain extent. It's just that Sri Lanka is playing catch up with the world when it comes to digital payments and all. Verification processes also is very cumbersome when it comes to whether transferring money from Sri Lanka to abroad or whether it's coming from abroad to Sri Lanka. There's a lot of areas that needs a little bit of clarity and a little bit of ironing out of replication of the same thing over and over again. But I sincerely hope that the government will be looking into those areas and also helping the business community to do, the ease of doing business will go high with this digitalization process.
Yes, because now if we talk about these digital payments, the main bottleneck what is not massively adapted is about the KYC process. Now for KYC, these small time businesses owners, they have to go to bank and then bank branch and then give a lot of documents in order for them to get accounts and so on. We have to simplify those. Then only the mass adoption of these services will be materialized. So to get that done, we have to have this digital ID kind of mechanisms, so that even through an online service, you can prove yourself by facial recognition, fingerprints, and then the KYC is already there. Like if the person's identity is there in the digital form, what more process has to go for the KYC?
Let's take a short commercial break. More to discuss with the Deputy Minister of Digital Economy, Eranga Weeraratne. I was just thinking about the fact that in India, Minister, even the beggars have digital swiping capabilities where they're now apparently coming and asking, they can give you the QR code and you can just transfer the money to them digitally.
Absolutely.
So that's the level that the beggars in India has got to. But hopefully we will be able to crack that code in digitizing Sri Lanka. Let's take a short commercial break. You're watching the Derana. Everyone to Get Real. Deputy Minister of Digital Economy, Eranga Weeraratne is here. We've been talking a lot about digitizing Sri Lanka and the government's plan to get us there. Minister, prior to this break, we spoke about digital payments and digital infrastructure towards the economy per se. GovPay is something that now the government has introduced, so that basically paying certain fees to the government sector would be eased. And I don't know what the adoption rate of that is by the masses, not through the institutions, but from both ends. But also there was this conversation where a lot of businesses were saying that they need a lot of support in digitizing Sri Lanka's economical aspect of things, so that they can do businesses easily, rather than going through these cumbersome processes of providing documentation, physically going into the bank, which is taking a lot of time. And especially high-end companies, they don't have a lot of staff, they have a very small amount of staff, so the utilization of the staff is also very much minimum. So in a situation like that, how can the government come and help the private sector?
Yeah, so the first point that you raised about digital payments. So we launched GovPay recently, relaunched GovPay recently actually. So that is to pay for government services through digital mode. So currently we have about 24 government institutions connected through GovPay for payments for various services, and we are going to expand that by another close to 50 services within next 3 months time frame. So that's the first step that in the digital payments that we are taking, because digital payments will change drastically the way the society is transacting in terms of money. Because what we see is there are about 1.5 trillion rupees in circulation as cash, as notes. So having that much of money as in the cash mode or the notes as notes doesn't add any value to the economy, because
it's costly too.
It's costly too. If you have 5,000 rupee note in your pocket, it is only a number. It doesn't add any value to the economy. When you are transacting with that money that you have, only it will add certain value to the economy. So, however, if you have that 5,000 note in your bank account, it will give you interest. It will allow the bank to invest that money. It will ultimately help for the economy to grow. So we want to bring as much as possible those money that is circulating in cash mode back to the financial institutions, the financial system. Then only that money, if we even bring let's say 1/3 out of 1.5 trillion, that's about 500 billion rupees. So that money will be available for both government and the private sector to invest on their business activities and grow the economy. So that's one of the ultimate objective that we have. The other point is about the cost of all this cash circulation. So the government is spending about 1.25 to 1.5% of GDP for this cash circulation activities. It could be printing notes and as well as replacing the damaged notes and so on. So we want to avoid that. If we can again reduce that by let's say 1/3, that's about 0.5% of GDP available for any other government activity. It could be put into let's say health services, education services and so many, or even digitalization services. So at the end the country benefits. And again, this digital payments adds a lot of value to the individual users as well. For example, a small-time shop owner, because they are so much informal, they can't produce the account statements to a bank for any collateral purpose to get loans and other things. Now, if this income and expenditure are recorded in digital form in this digital payment platform, those information will be helpful in proving your financial ability. So the government will bring on board this bank financial system also to support the entrepreneurs, SMEs, MSMEs, with digitalization, with the financial system supporting their business activities.
Is that in the time frame of 2025 or beyond?
Now we are going to relaunch QR based payments within this year. For that, we just don't want to like launch it, but we want to bring certain amendments and improve certain platforms improvements. We want to bring the MDR, that is the transaction fee for transaction to near zero. Maybe government will have to subsidize certain percentage of this transaction cost. Maybe the financial institutions, by looking at the additional float that they are getting by bringing all this cash to the financial systems, the additional income that they generate to subsidize the cost. So various activities are there. So we are now creating a proposal to the central bank and the financial institutions to look at the positives and bring that MDR to near zero. Because for small shops, whatever the percentage of MDR is a killer.
There is still, I mean, like if you are going to do a transaction with your card, then they say plus 2% or something like that. So that is basically they don't want to lose their income.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
that basically off-puts you providing a digital format, and then you go and get your physical cash into your hand, and then it's easy to provide. So that's an area. Minister, we are running out of time, but before, very quickly, I just want to touch on another subject I don't know whether the government is thinking about with regard to elections. Now, digitizing that particular area is also very vital because, we just have only 22 million people. Out of that, eligible voters are around somewhere very close to 11 million, 12 million, 13 million. That's the range. So for them to vote, now we still do this paper-based voting, but if you are talking about a digitalized nation, and the government, is the government thinking about digital voting as well? And also that would enhance the ability to release the results very quickly rather than, we take like 1.5 days just to calculate around 13 to 14 million votes. In a country like America, 350 million votes, not 350, around 250 million votes cast, and it is overnight, within hours they know who the winner is. So in a situation like that, we can actually look at enhancing that, because that is also digitalizing the democracy aspect of things. So is the government thinking on that path as well?
We are seriously looking at that option as well, but for that we'll have to have the digital ID. Then only we can get the votes done in the more authentic and acceptable mode. Because somebody, once they go to the booth, they'll have to prove themselves who the person is when they are casting their vote. So to get rid of all this paper-based marking, because if you go to a polling booth today, you can see 4 or 5 people taking notes and marking in their paper who the person came to vote. So to avoid that, we'll have to go for digital ID-based voting system, and that will take substantial time, because now for the proper implementation of digital ID will take about 1.5 years, and thereafter we have to
1.5 years to put it out, or
put it out with a system that can connect with all the other digital services.
So we are looking at 2026.
Yes, for the full system. But before that, within 6 months time frame, we are going to launch a solution, a system that can start issuing the digital ID. So we'll start registration of the new IDs that is going to get issued on the digital ID format within 6 months time frame. However, you have to build the system so that other systems can integrate and with all the APIs and other things. So that whole process will take about 1.5 years time. And thereafter, we'll have to convert all the physical ID registrations to digital ID. So that process will take about 2.5 years to 3 years kind of time frame to convert the whole 17 million Sri Lankans into digital ID platform. So thereafter only that we can look at a critical service like electronic payments, electronic voting.
Yeah.
But we are looking at the options. And
what's the guarantee that, let's say, after 5 years, your government, let's say, loses power and a new administration comes in, that this process will continue? Where is the guarantee? Because Sri Lanka is very famous for changing our policy 5 years, 5 years, 5 years, and this particular aspect that you're talking about is actually not a 5-year project but beyond. We have to be targeting 25 years. This is where the country is heading, and these are the systems that you are bringing in, so that even an investor looking at this particular process can identify, okay, this is going to be easy to do business in the near future. So in a situation like that, what is the guarantee that the government is hoping to put in, at least if you all are hoping to put in place, so that this will continue? These types of projects, there are national policy changes which whatever the administration that is coming in should have the freedom to change, but things like this, because this is an investment, Minister, and you said around 16 billion rupees and another 21 billion rupees, and those are money of Sri Lankans, and then you spend it within 5 years, and then again the next 5 years we are saying we need another billions of rupees. That doesn't make sense. These systems has to withstand beyond. So what exactly is the thinking there?
Yeah, so the countries where the legislations are not changing drastically, or the policies are not changing drastically, have a very strong civil service, which Sri Lanka doesn't have. It's more politicized, and the politicians can change the way and the policies overnight. So we have to avoid that. So until we have a strong civil service and the policies are consistent, run, we have to have one government running. So therefore, best thing is not to change the government. So that will continue this policy. And
a little bit of election work there by the minister as well. Well,